following are the learning objectives of this session. To explore the basic understanding about the Buddhism. To explain the nature of the subject. What are the major denominations of Buddhism? According to the literature and the practice, there are two major denominations of Buddhism. Theravada. Mahayana. Theravada. Theravada Buddhism is mainly practiced in Southeastern Asia, such as Sri Lanka, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. Mahayana. Mahayana Buddhism is mainly practiced in Northern Asia, such as China, Korea, Tibet, and Japan. Theravada Buddhism. The emphasis of Theravada Buddhism is practice for the spiritual attainment and liberation of the individual. Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism, which includes Zen, emphasizes the need to practice for self-actualization and then ultimately, to liberate all beings from suffering. 3 denomination. Theravada. The Theravada tradition of Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia, also sometimes referred to as Southern Buddhism. Its canonical scriptures are preserved in Pali, an ancient Indian language closely related to Sanskrit. The school exemplifies a certain conservatism. Relative to the other two traditions, it can be regarded as generally closer in doctrine and practice to ancient Buddhism as it existed in the early centuries BCE in India. Mahayana. Its scriptures are preserved in Chinese and its general outlook is that of the Mahayana or Great Vehicle. East Asian Buddhism is extremely diverse. It has coexisted with Confucianism, Taoism, Shinto, and, more recently but less happily, Communism. Tibetan. The Tibetan tradition, also sometimes referred to as Northern Buddhism. Its scriptures are preserved in Tibetan and once more its outlook is broadly that of the Mahayana, but its more specific orientation is that of the vehicle of the Diamond Thunderbolt, Vajrayana, also known as Tantric Buddhism. Who founded? Where? When? And how? Buddhism was founded by Siddhartha Gautama approximately 2,500 years ago in the Himalayas between present-day India and Nepal. Siddhartha Gautama was born around the year 563 BC, the son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya of the Shakya clan. After 29 years of luxurious and sheltered existence, he first saw a sick man, an old man, and a dead man. Finally saw a preacher. Realizing that he was unsatisfied with his lavish and comfortable life, Siddhartha Gautama left his father's palace to seek to understand the causes of suffering. He then practiced severe asceticism for many years, denying his body food and drink until he reached the point of starvation. At the age of 35, after realizing that death would bring him no closer to enlightenment, he again took food and entered deep meditation beneath a tree. After 7 days and nights of meditation he attained enlightenment and became known as the Buddha, meaning one who is truly awake. He taught monks, disciples, and laypeople throughout India for 45 years until his peaceful death at the age of 80. Why? Buddhism was founded as a way to end suffering. The Buddha began his search in response to suffering. He wanted to find a way to live a life of happiness, wisdom, compassion, joy and equanimity. Deities and divinity. The Buddha is not a god or deity, nor is he worshipped by Buddhists as a god or embodiment of God. The Buddha himself emphasized that he was not a god, but was simply a human being who was fully awake, attentive and aware of the here and now. He did not ask to be worshipped but rather encouraged others to look deeply into themselves to answer fundamental questions about life and death. A common confusion stems from the fact that Buddhists often have statues of the Buddha in their homes and places of worship. This is done to serve as a reminder of our own true nature of wisdom and compassion. Therefore, bowing before such figures is neither idolatry nor worship of the figure itself, but rather a sign of gratitude, respect and recognition. This practice has its roots in Asian culture, where bowing was not construed in the same way as it was and is in the Western world. Within Buddhism there is no conception of God as one who judges, sets an immutable fate, creates, or destroys. However, in the sense that some understand God as a divine light, expressed within all people, a very similar idea exists within Buddhism. Buddhism by no means rejects the idea of divinity or the divine. Buddhists believe that every moment and every person is an embodiment of this divinity. Who, and indeed what, was the Lord Buddha? The word Buddha is not a name but a title. Its meaning is one who has woken up. A Buddha awakens to the knowledge of the world as it truly is and in so doing finds release from suffering. He teaches out of sympathy and compassion for the suffering of beings, for the benefit and welfare of all beings. He teaches in order to lead others to awaken to the understanding that brings final relief from suffering. Buddhist scriptures. Buddhism cannot be reduced to a collection of theoretical writings nor a philosophical system of thought, although both these form an important part of its tradition. What lies at the heart of Buddhism, according to its own understanding of the matter, is Dharma. Dharma is not an exclusively Buddhist concept, but one which is common to Indian philosophical, religious, social, and political thought in its entirety. According to Indian thought, Dharma is that which is the basis of things, the underlying nature of things, the way things are. In short, it is the truth about things, the truth about the world. More than this, Dharma is the way we should act. The Buddha regarded the Dharma he had found as profound, hard to see, hard to understand, peaceful, sublime, beyond the sphere of mere reasoning, subtle, to be experienced by the wise. Knowledge of Dharma is not a matter of scholarly and intellectual study. This does mean that such study may not have a part to play, yet it can never be the whole story. In fact, according to an ancient and authoritative view of the matter, knowledge of Dharma comes about as a result of the interplay between three kinds of understanding. Dharma arises from listening, sutra, that which arises from reflection, cinta, and that which arises from spiritual practice, bhavana. The aim of Buddhism is to put into practice a particular way of living the holy life, or spiritual life, brahmacharya. that involves training in ethical conduct sila, and meditative and contemplative techniques samadhi, and which culminates in the direct realization of the very knowledge prajna the Buddha himself reached under the tree of awakening. In general, Buddhist literature is voluminous and not all has been translated. The scriptures are written both in Pali, a classical, sacred dialect of Sanskrit, and in Sanskrit. Pali was used by the monks of the Theravada tradition and Sanskrit by the monks of the Mahayana tradition. The Theravada texts. Pittakaya. 3 baskets. Sutra Pittakaya. Basket of discourses. Vinaya Pittakaya. Basket of discipline. Abhidhamma Pittakaya. Basket of higher teachings.